order the September 23rd, 2021 Budget and Audit Committee together. We've got approval of minutes. I haven't seen, anybody got any comments on those? I think Sandy sent those out earlier in the month. We'll move on to, if not, those will stand as approved. Item 3A, the FY22 revenue report.
Yeah.
Bobby, could you kind of run us through that?
Sure, so I'll be brief. Sales tax revenues remain strong so far for the first 2 months of this fiscal year, so that would be July and August. Compared to the same 2 months last year, local sales tax is up 8%. State sales tax is actually up 18%. So total sales tax is up 10.5% for the first 2 months. And I would just remind everybody that that represents sales back in May and June.
Okay.
And that's the receipt for the month, and the way the accounting works, that'll actually be accrued back to last year. So, but you can see the trend continued.
Okay.
I know Laura's here on the hotel tax, but I was just gonna report, these are not city numbers, but these are hotel tax in total that you sent me recently.
Yes, we're showing for the, through January through June
Right.
of this year that we were up nearly 52% over last year. So things are going well, and more importantly, looking back to 2019, we're up over 20, I believe around 26% over 2019. 2019 was a record-setting year.
Right.
How long this will hold out is unknown, especially with consumer confidence changing with travel right now, but a good first half of the year.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Bobby on that revenue report? And I guess we're getting ready on property tax stuff. Those will be issued soon.
We are. So we've been working feverishly on property tax, getting them ready to be mailed out in recent days, and we're through with our part. And so the company that we contract with to print and mail, it should be mailed any day now, maybe
Okay.
today. Property taxes can be paid beginning October 1st. So we're kind of geared up in the revenue office for the busy period, busy time there. So
All right. We'll
thank you.
all eagerly await our property tax bills.
We will. Yep.
Move on to business. Under our budget amendment review for this month, the first thing we've got is the police department pay scale compression. What you got getting handed out right now. We had this came out of some discussions with the fire department and police department, as y'all are aware, that we went through a month or two back, and looking at retention and really just looking at how can we get our police officers kind of reducing that 14-year top-out timeline to, and I think this reflects 10 years. If I'm misspeaking, y'all correct me. Chief, if you want to kind of speak to it.
And remind the committee, this is part of the three approach, the interim,
Yes.
going to the long term. Yeah, so if you go to page 2, those are the current pay rates.
Of this one? Yeah, this one.
Yeah, the pay where they
She gave us 2 of them, I was just making
Yeah.
sure.
So, page 2 is the current pay rate of a police officer, time of service at Jackson Police Department. And you can see a Jackson Police Department also starts out at $17.06 an hour, and that's just not competitive in our field or the private sector. So we had some meetings, a committee to look at wage progression. So currently it takes 14 years for a police officer to top out at the Jackson Police Department. So what we did is the proposal is instead of topping out at 14 years, they'll top out at 10 years now. So they will start out, if you look at page 2 on the original pay scale, they're gonna start out between, the proposal is between a 3 and a 4-year officer to get that initial pay up, so we can be competitive with other agencies. And then they will top out under this proposal in, you'll top out in 10 years instead of 14 years. So as far as retention. And there were some other factors in there. You can see in parentheses out to the side how we kind of got in this situation where in a other budget area. So we actually have other folks in dispatch making more than what the police officers are making starting out. So we're trying to get us up on a level playing field here. The proposal also includes patrol sergeant, lieutenant, and captain. So pretty much what that looks like for those 3 positions, it's just a $2,500 increase. And their pay scales are on page 3, and that's where they top out at. Now, sergeant and lieutenant, they can continue to work overtime if there's special duties or overtime or extra duty. Captain's on salary, so whatever captain's salary is, that's what it is, regardless if they work overtime or not. I'm gonna let you, and then if you look on page 4, that's gonna be the difference. That's gonna be the increase. Now, Mr. Arnold has some numbers that would include benefits along with that number. So I don't know how long it would take to get this implemented. I think probably with the open positions that we've got currently at the police department, it could be offset this year in this year's budget. We probably could absorb the majority of this, but next year, you know, we would have to have a budget increase to absorb these new pay raises. But, you know, you guys have heard me sit up here and talk in council meetings and about the challenges that we face in our profession. And, you know, historically, we've never lost officers to smaller departments or more rural departments. But what we're seeing smaller departments and more rural departments paying the same thing we are. So we've got to retain our employees. We've got to get some separation here. And you know, the last 5 years, we've cut our budget continuously. Any new initiatives like these police cars, we tried to absorb that in our existing budgets. We went from 231 police officers to 218, and that is a direct result of budget cuts and, you know, having to pay for equipment. When the past administration would tell us to cut the budget, we don't have any other place to cut it than in salaries. You know, when you look at the total police department budget, you're looking at 85 to 88% is made up in salaries. So we're operating the police department on that other 10 to 12%. So I'll open it up for any questions y'all may have.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. So if, kind of to follow back on what the Chief said, we're looking at just trying to track with you this year, potentially no budget impact if we absorb that in the open positions, pending that we don't have some additional hires come on. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I think we should be able to absorb most of it because, I mean, I don't know if we could get this implemented, you know, in November. You know, we're going to be 5-6 months already in the budget year. We've got those open salaries. And so, yeah, we should be able to absorb. I mean, the number on page 4 is not the total number we're going to be responsible for this year. That's.
We still have 12 open slots right now. Or we'll have by the end of November because of retirements.
Okay.
And this, Chief, this page, have y'all seen this?
No.
Okay, I assume that this page doesn't account for the retirements too, so these are current employees, so that would also impact this. And just the rough math that I ran was, take out the open positions, then we're pretty budget neutral, what we have budgeted, so if you're not accounting for the retirements, then that reduces that cost as well.
So this sheet has, when we prepared it, there were 8 vacant positions, I think, at that time, and you see your 12 includes some pending, some more people in. Yeah, so there's 8 vacant positions in this number that we prepared, and as the chief said, this is, considers a full 12-month
Mhm.
period, not this budget year. And
Right.
it has the FICA and retirement costs added, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and taking the open positions out, the 8 out, you still came in with the budgeted amount for the entire year, and then you factor in the number of months it hasn't happened, and then the additional officers that have left, it's gonna reduce the number of the impact.
Okay.
And, you know, when I look at the overall budget for the police department, it's going well. You know, the only area that we may be up in is in overtime.
And y'all
Yes.
are working on a grant for that right now, right? In that, I don't mean to put you on the spot about that overtime piece that the state sent out, that gave us, a week to apply for it.
Yeah, we're looking at that, but, I read that grant, and that overtime only covers November through December. So that's not gonna help us a whole lot.
Yeah.
And it'll only cover COVID overtime, cover.
Cover COVID shifts, okay.
But the overtime's not to the point where it's a major concern or anything. I mean, we're gonna be over a little bit, but, you know, it's not a major concern. I mean, we've had a lot of events, go on this year, with the bicentennial and other events, and, you know, we staff those and bring in extra people when we got those events going on. So it's not gonna be anything of any concern. You know, Paul, I can't give you an exact number of where we're gonna be, but I think, you know, you take those open positions out, we don't anticipate we're probably gonna fill those. If we do, it'll probably be, you know, we're looking at April, May, and we're gonna be deep in the budget year,
Yeah.
by
So you
that
may
point.
see a month or two of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's a 3 to 5 month process from the time you take the test, for the whole,
Okay.
to get hired.
So go ahead.
Just wanna, Chief Weiser may not be aware of this particular officer, he may, I just wanna tell you a story about, he mentioned the officers that have gone to smaller departments. We had 2, one went to Chester County because the sheriff down there offered him what we were paying here, and he got to take on a vehicle, but we also lost an officer, McCreary, to Lexington PD, and he's from Lexington, and he went to Lexington making the same thing he was making here at JPD. And the thing about Officer McCreary was, we had invested a lot of money in Officer McCreary because he was one of our bond techs. And when I say we invested a lot of money, I'm talking about anywhere upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 in his training. And he left us to go to Lexington, to make the same amount of money and live in his hometown.
Mm.
He's been talking to some of the people that he worked with on our bomb squad, and when he heard about the potential for the pay to go up, he's now wanting to come back.
Right.
So that's nothing but a benefit to us, because we were in the process of about to have to try to find somebody to replace him on our bomb team,
And train them up and everything.
and spend another $8,000 to $10,000 to train somebody in his place.
Okay.
Yeah, so Barry just, we've got 8 recruits that's getting ready to go to the academy, and Barry just applied for a grant through the state. They've got some funding to sponsor the academy cost. So we just got that turned in, and we're hoping we can get the academy costs covered.
Okay.
There's apparently a lot of COVID money out there in the the state sector for different initiatives in law enforcement.
So if we approve this, the officers that are making less than what we're talking about, we just bring them up to that level
Yeah,
Yep.
based on their year.
on the year?
So,
Yeah.
we got an officer now at 2 years, and,
So that'd be covered under page 1.
yeah, so, yeah, whatever they're making, so they're making, 38 now in 2 years, they'll be bumped up to 46.
Okay.
Yeah, so, let's say a one-year officer under the current pay scale is making $37,731.20. Under this new proposal, it'd be $44,824. And if you guys approve it, the council approves it, it'll go into effect immediately. So, everybody in this chain is gonna get immediate,
What
pay
about-
raise.
The ones that have topped out already,
Yeah, so,
the ones that already topped out, how would they be?
yeah, so the 10-year mark, and I apologize for this, but like I said, on the sergeant, lieutenant, and captains, that was just a straight $2,500 add-on. And we did that same thing for the 10-year officer. So we're gonna reclassify that as a senior patrol officer.
Okay.
To be higher, okay.
So they're going, a topped-out officer goes from, under the current pay scale, $54,974, to be going up to $56,971.
Right.
There'll be an increase with them, okay.
And that's kind of what we talked about a couple months ago, about that incentive to go on and go up the ranks. Where
Right.
right now, you got the added responsibility, but not a lot of pay bump.
Right.
So the guy will just stay in that 14-year spot, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And plus, if you look, so you gotta be at the department for 5 years to put in for the sergeant promotional. So under the current pay scale, there's not a lot of incentive, for a senior officer really to put in for sergeant, because you're gonna go to, at that point in your career, if you got 10 years, you've got seniority, you got a good shift, good hours. If you take the promotional assessment and get promoted, you're gonna be the junior sergeant, you're gonna go to the not-so-good shift. And so with this pay separation between sergeant and, officer at 7 or 8 years, hopefully it will encourage them to put in for the sergeant promotion.
Okay. Any other questions on this? So this is a part of kind of a continuing, as the mayor brought up, continuing process that we'll be going through for the next year or so, and hopefully we can continue to have this
Yeah, we're
be on a
finalizing
two-year
kind of
basis.
we sent out the RFP, and so we've had some questions responded, so we're answering the questions on the RFP of what we need in that to do that study for the entire organization.
And it looks like, so this year, potentially a neutral, kind of budget neutral, but next year, it looks like we're in the ballpark of about $1 million that we'll need to budget for in future
Yeah, with
Fiscal
pay
years.
and benefits.
pay and benefits.
I'm not up here trying to sell a pay raise for the whole department. I mean, we prioritize this to our officers and our middle ranks. This is just kind of how important it is. We've got to get competitive, or we're gonna continue to lose good officers that we're investing a lot of money in. And, it takes a long time from the time we hire them to they go through the training process to the academy to get them on the street. And there's a lot of time, money invested, equipment.
What's just the time, not even the money invested in the training, but from hire to patrolling by themselves?
7 to 8 months. Yep. So,
Okay.
and we've got, the mayor's allowed us to get creative with the lateral program, so we've got some incentives there that, we've got some sign-on bonuses for lateral officers, and they come in at every year of service that they have. So there's some pay incentives there, and that's been successful. Yeah, so if you came to
Captain or
JPD,
something.
Or
you had
even the years of service in the
Yeah.
regular patrol?
if you had 5 years of service, you would start out at 5 years of service here. And kind of how that works, it's a $5,000 sign-on bonus. you get half of it up front, and once you make your 2-year probation, you get the other half. So we've been able to do that without budget increases. We just absorbed it in some of those open positions. But it takes us kind of getting creative like that to be competitive.
Okay.
Bring this before the council. November, okay.
Either October 5th be first reading, then November 2nd, I think is the second reading.
Then they would realize the pay increases in November, in the next paycheck after the council meeting.
All right.
Yeah, and so I started a new program where I meet with, it's called the Patrol Committee Program, and I meet with it's made up of officers on every shift and supervisors. And, they've been very appreciative that you guys are looking at this and taking a serious look at it, and, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions on this? I'd move that we recommend this to the council at the next meeting, put it on the agenda for their consideration.
Second that.
All right, so we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? If not, the recommendation passes. We'll move on to, thank you, Chief. We appreciate it. Thank you, Barry. Yeah. Let's go down to item 2, and we're going to add an item 3 that will be public defender discussion. But item 2, street department capital. I know I'm trying to be conscious of your time here, Johnny.
I think everybody has the email, so we talked about this last month. I didn't give you.
You're good.
But, so they had the paver, in the street department budget capital is we use from, Improve Act funds. And, without buying the milling head and the Bobcat to do that, which we have reserved over in the capital, they have a loader that's, I think you got a couple of emails on about the need for a new one. I think that loader total cost, they got a quote, they added I think 1.5% or 2%, just because the last time they got it, everything's just gone up. And so 146,993 is what the total cost is, which would be a budget amendment for the capital for 11,993 to purchase a new loader in lieu of the lowboy paver, which that would just, what it would do is just switch the buckets, right? So we got the Improve Act bucket that we're getting the capital out of. The loader is in the capital budget that we're waiting on some guidance on. So we just switch those items, and then we would get the loader purchase, because this is a more emergent need, and there's what, 13,000 to repair it right now, and it's 21 years old.
So the question that I have, and you answered this the other day when we were kind of discussing this, and Bobby, just so for clarification. So these dollars are already in our capital budget.
135.
135. Now, is the 12,000 that we've got, is that, are we gonna pull that from the general fund, or are we gonna pull that from another line item in the capital
It
budget?
was proposed to be pulled from another line item in the capital budget that's already
Okay.
approved related to the Air Force grant that was funded for this year. It actually ended up being paid before June 30th.
Okay, so we have that's extra that's sitting in the capital. And so we had kind of just talking process real quickly. And I guess we need to confirm this, but that would be, because we're only moving it within that fund from line item to line item, is that just a single reading that this goes through? Okay,
Staying in the fund.
it's staying in the fund, we're not moving it from fund to fund or major category to major category. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've had some discussions with Percy. I think this is something they desperately need to
Yeah.
keep up and keep going. Are there any questions on this?
So we're basically just looking at like, hey, cost this, buy it for this, a new one. How
Yeah.
old's ours, 20, what'd you say? 20?
Ours is 21 years old, and I want to say they got it used when they got it.
Okay.
And they put in quite a bit of money to repair it. I think the repair right now is 13,000 to repair it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the cost of the new one's 146, and that would give us a brand new one, as opposed to the one we have now, which I think they've had to do a repair on it every year for the last 10 or so years.
Do we know if we can actually get one? Like,
Well,
shortages
that's,
and everything else?
they got a quote, so I think that equipment is easier to get because it doesn't have all the
Chips and
technology
stuff.
and the chips that the vehicles do,
Okay.
hopefully. As soon as I say that, they probably got chips in them now. but I think they're easier to get
Okay.
than vehicles.
Question? I'd move that we go ahead and recommend this as well.
Second that.
So we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Let's move on to our next item, public defender discussion. You'll have to fill us in on that.
Yeah, I was notified, I sent over to Bobby and Lewis that, so the money that we allocated for the gang prosecutor for the DA's office, Tennessee code says that local funding, so if a municipality increases, whatever the funding is for the DA's office, they have to match it 75% for the public defender's office. So it doesn't include grants, so the grant we had previously for that position did not fall under that Tennessee code. And so now that we are funding that position as a municipality, then we have to match the funds from the DA's office to the public defender's office at 75%.
Okay.
Did I say that right, Bobby?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's about $66,000.
Yeah.
So, and I guess the public defender, that's at their discretion to, like, they'll hire another public
Yeah, I
defender
think
or
it's
something
what,
like
that's
that.
what he indicated when I
Okay.
talked to him, that he wanted to hire someone.
So I guess that, there's really nothing to, I mean, nothing to
No,
move on. I
Tennessee
mean,
code says we
right,
have to.
so,
I just
okay.
wanted to,
Make us aware of
yeah,
it.
make y'all aware before we put it to
Okay.
council.
Okay, yeah, that seems logical and equitable. Any other discussion about that? All right, item B, solid waste inspector position. I know we've had some kind of side discussions about this, and could you kind of fill us in on where,
They've narrowed it down to candidates are gonna interview. I think they're scheduling those interviews. I talked with Leilani, I talked with her every day this week. One of the days this week I talked with her, we talked about the position, and I asked her about the budget impact. She says because they were down positions to start with, to start the fiscal, then we added the 4, and they haven't fully filled all those positions yet. So we're in a good cushion of funds for salaries in that department. So
we don't anticipate a budget amendment?
I don't think we'll need one,
Okay,
because we still got 2 more claw truck drivers that are not, I don't even think we've gone back to the interview process for those 2 additional claw truck drivers, just because it's been so difficult.
any questions on that? I think we talked at some of our prior work sessions about the need to have somebody kind of falling behind and making sure that, one,
Yeah, they're gonna-
residents are compliant.
They're gonna do
and-
several things. Yeah, they're gonna do the compliance for the residents. They're gonna do, hopefully, we're gonna get them equipped with an iPad, so they can remote straight into our iWork system, so they're not doing 311 tickets, and 311 has to type it out into iWork. They can do the tickets from site, and then there's another issue of the alleyway pickup. It's still not consistent on if a resident is unable to do it or not, and so they're gonna handle all that. We already have a GIS map of our alleyways, so we're gonna send them out too and say, you can make it to the street, you cannot, your service on the alleyway, and get a clear database of that as well.
Okay. I think like, if they're going out and talking to, say there's a hand pile that's maybe just outside of the bounds, and I don't know if they encounter a resident, it's like, look, kind of an educational deal.
Yeah,
Hey,
we're
we just
gonna
wanna
get
tell you
maintenance
what
to
you
do
gotta
kind of a PVC frame.
Yeah.
It's 3 by 5 by 3, and they can just go set it over the pile, and if it's something where it's stood up over 3 feet, they
Right.
can tell them, he or she can say, lay it down, and it fits in the framework, and then
Yeah.
do it like that. Make it as simple as possible, but be able to respond instead of having to send our office folks, because we're short-staffed there as well. And we're trying to get some temporary people in, because one of our office staff is having effects from COVID, pulmonary effects from COVID, and had to go home yesterday.
Any other questions about that? Moving on to item C, yeah, it's about time to start having some discussions about our budget calendar. So the next couple of items are just for us to just start having some preliminary discussion about. And what I'd like us to think about between now and our next meeting is ways that we can continue to refine and improve the process. Last year, we added some work sessions in for us as the council to be able to interact with the department heads, and we also added a planning session, which I think was good for us to establish my hope would be that we continue to refine that planning session, especially as we have these the ARPA funds coming through, and how are we gonna manage that and tie that into our overall goals and objectives. So I just want us to think about that. What worked well? What didn't work well? What can we improve upon? There's always, I think this is gonna be a constant process of improvement. Because this is something that the city hadn't done historically in recent years. Well, maybe ever. And so for us to be able to kind of sit down and continue to kind of put our heads together on how do we fine tune this thing. You know, these are last year's dates, as you see. But I think that January meeting was a good time. I think it may serve us well to make, even prior to that, to start having some discussions about the ARP funds, how those kind of fit into future budgeting, and communicate that, you know, not only to the council, but to the department heads and to the community as well as we kind of go through that.
Yeah, I think, and I've sent some emails to Bobby and Stacy on the ARP funds, on how we can go through the interim final guidance. Because, I mean, it won't get more restrictive as guidance comes out. It'll loosen up, but how we can start looking at how we can strategically manage some of the funds, so it's not just sitting there waiting. And so we can start strategically managing how we utilize the interim final guidance to do some things that we already have in our capital plan, and then see if we can free some additional funds up through the interim final guidance, so we can start short-term planning for the 5-year plan with those funds. And so that'll be hopefully the next couple of months, we can start having that planning and implementation conversation.
Okay.
I will share with you, and I can send this information out to whomever.
Ross.
Spin that microphone.
So, yeah, so the comptroller's office has started a weekly webinar, you know, on the ARPA funds. And the one last week was just kind of a general introduction, not anything really significant. The one yesterday, it's every Wednesday, the one yesterday had to do with reporting requirements surrounding these funds, and they are significant. I mean, they're serious about the reporting, and it's you have to not just account for the dollars, but you have to articulate in a narrative in some reports, you know, how what you're doing meets the goals of the ARPA fund. So it's pretty significant, and you know, they've taken what I thought was 4 categories, and now they have 7 general categories that the money can be spent on: public health, negative economic impact, services to disproportionately impacted communities, premium pay, infrastructure, revenue replacement, and there is an administrative category. But there are 162 specific types of expenditures that fall, like, for instance, the one on public health, there's 12 types of programs or expenditures that fall under public health. But, so there is a lot of thought that, and I guess the thing I took away from it yesterday was, it's gonna be not just a financial report. I mean, the program, you have to justify with a narrative, and it's some pretty
It's
significant,
like grant,
robust
almost like
reporting.
grant filing, isn't it?
Yeah, kinda, yeah. And,
That may have been, is this what you?
I sent in
did,
they had the meeting,
Yeah.
well, one of the programs, I sent in on that.
did you?
And
Yeah.
they talked about, statement weekly, similar like you were talking about.
Mhm.
And then they also mentioned about, even when we get our money, as far as we need to check with our local banks and see about putting in a local bank, but the state do have a program that we can put our money
Yeah.
into, a state
So-
program, that would help us out, that we can generate
Yeah.
funds,
Some
interest,
well,
and
maybe
then we can draw it
yeah.
down as we need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course now, just so you'll know, the funds we've received so far are right now with our local bank.
Okay.
We made that decision, and, so there's a combination of interest earnings and offset our banking fees is kind of the way it works. And we do have the option to go with the, LGIP
Yeah,
account if we
LGIP,
choose
that's what it is.
to
And
do
then
that.
also, they talked, have we even set up a portal yet?
Yeah, we have,
Yeah.
because you.
Had to set that up to get it
You
right.
had to set up to get, well, talking with the comptroller's office.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you submitted a-
we've got all the portal requirements set up, and actually, there was an interim report that had to be filed at the end of August, which, you know, was just kind of some general information, but since we've not obligated any of the money at that particular time,
Right.
you know, it was a pretty simple report to fill out. So we're current on our reporting requirements right now, but there's another report date at the end of October, and, you know, your expenditures kind of fall into the category of, you know, obligated or actually expended kind of thing. And there's just some pretty robust reporting, and we're trying to, you know, we need to set our internal accounting processes and account structure up. You know, right now, I'm talking to our auditors on what they recommend. Some people are putting these funds in a separate, these ARPA funds in a separate fund. Others are kind of accounting for it within the general fund, just in separate accounts.
But I think, they did mention it might be better, to probably put it in a separate account,
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be in a separate account.
to
Yeah.
keep a,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
and then they mentioned, opportunities for some state matching programs that would be, to keep a lookout, and even water
Yeah.
sewage matching program.
Were you on the call yesterday?
I went to the conference.
Oh, did you?
I was in
Okay.
Chattanooga, and I kinda seen
I
in,
got
and
you.
they kinda gave
Okay.
us a breakdown.
I do know the program next week, I was gonna share this with everybody, it's next Wednesday, but, it's kinda specific to the infrastructure category.
Okay.
So, you know, it may be that some of you all, or Tom, or whomever need to,
Would
Sit in on
would
that,
you
so.
mind, copying the
Mhm.
council and this committee
Yeah.
on this information?
Yeah, okay.
And as you get those webinars, if you
Mhm.
could send the invites, and that
Yeah.
way we
Yeah, that's
we
what I
could
was
pop
gonna-
in.
I
Yeah.
think it would be good to send to all the councils,
Yeah.
the days they
Yeah,
do have
there's,
them,
Mm-hmm.
would be good. Then
If
the mayor,
somebody's
I would like
available.
to-
there's,
They did suggest, once we get a breakdown, which you probably already got a schedule, to probably have some meetings to kinda explain how the money probably is gonna be used.
Yeah,
As we
that
go.
was the conversation. We gotta figure out how we're gonna do it, right? Sorry. And so if we're doing lost revenue, I think the important thing for the community is how we're spending it locally. I mean, it is important how we're accounting for it, but I don't wanna get people lost in the detail of, hey, we're accounting for lost revenue because of this, and we did this formula, but we're gonna use this to do this, and it gets really, it's confusing for us, let alone someone who doesn't.
That's like when you do go.
Yeah, how we're going to invest it, though, how we're gonna invest it locally. We're gonna break that down kind of in categorical
Yep.
ways of, you know, percentages or dollar amounts of, we're gonna do $500,000 in infrastructure, whatever it looks like, and then maybe line out the projects that we're planning to do like that. From just, I just done this personally, haven't shared it yet with anybody, just to kind of see what we can do interim wise, and just what I think, which is probably wrong, but, the interim goes of, and there's roughly like little over 2 million, I think, that we can do right now of what we have in our capital budget. It would fall in the interim, and once I feel comfortable enough to let Bobby pick it apart, I'm gonna send it over to him.
I like it, I thought there's a component of where we can make donations to nonprofits.
Yeah.
So if we just-
There's also a component, we can make loans to businesses.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity.
So I
Yeah.
think, if we could do something to help some of our nonprofits, we probably suffered this past year.
Yeah.
Or whatever, if we could set a percentage of something,
Yeah.
even like if it's a grant thing, like thing that they can apply for, or something, something that they can.
Yeah, I think there's opportunities, there are also some neighborhood beautification opportunities for local neighborhood associations, you know, downtown business beautifications or business, something like that. We can-
Tourism.
Yeah,
And it's just-
tourism. Wonder why Lori's here.
Yeah, impacted industries and, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Johnny. So kind of all, this is all mixing together, but, the 5-year capital plan, I think these two things kind of run in parallel together. As we look at the ARPA funds and what the mayor was just talking about, you know, what capital items do we have that have been a need that we deferred last year that meet the specifications of the interim guidance that we have? And how does that align with our overall 5-year capital plan update?
And then we also, you know, keep an eye on the infrastructure bill. I mean, we don't know if or when, if that's gonna happen, but if you look at, I think I sent that out to council, and I call it the stimulus capital, summary. And a lot of the big infrastructure projects I pushed off 2 or 3 years, just because I didn't want to try to account and budget for them now with money that we have, but knowing that we can move them up if we get some infrastructure funds and whatever that may look like.
Okay. Yeah, and it may be just taking those and prioritizing them and giving them, a 1, 2, 3 priority. That way we know, okay, we got the ones, they're the guys that we need to make sure when we get that funding, if and when.
Yeah.
We're queued up, ready to go on.
Right, because we know it's a need, and right now they're putting in that FY 24-25 where we see that debt service payment drop down, so, but knowing that if we do get some funds that we can use immediately, then we can prioritize them and move them up accordingly.
Okay. Our next meeting, October the 14th, is what we're looking at. And that'll be the second Thursday of that month. Correct me if I'm wrong there, she got me last time. And then next meeting, Bobby and I talked about this the other day, and I think at our last meeting too, we'll have that quarterly review. That's, the delay of that's kind of due to some accruals that we've got for sales tax. And so, if there's anything else we need to talk about, that's the rest of the agenda. If not, we'll be adjourned. All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Paul, did you already talk about the sound and?
Yes, so one of the things that we're talking about.
I was gone, so you may have talked about it.
No, we haven't. So one of the things we need to look at is, because we got this set up here, if there's the potential to either get like recording ability in Ben Langford, or get recording ability in the small conference room here. Ben Langford seems like the easiest way to do it. I don't know if that's like high quality camera or if that's just like some way we can put an iPad there to record it with a good microphone. But we need some way to,
Yeah.
where
That's
the,
how we do the council meeting with iPad, but we put the microphone on the speaker, because we all have microphones.
okay,
There wouldn't be we'd have to do a room mic, I guess, or something that'll pick up all the sound, unless we have multiple microphones in Ben Langford. I don't know.
I'm just thinking as we move forward with committees and, how we're doing, with all the COVID stuff and the unknowns,
It may be simpler just to get more microphones to hook into this system, maybe.
like some wireless mics. That's
Yeah.
one of the things you brought up.
Marcus told me that they could get 2 of those microphones for that $850. It wasn't
Yeah.
one, it was
Two,
2.
the two wireless mics where
Two
we,
wire- wireless
Maybe
mics.
easier to just have the standards instead of having to
Yeah.
get a whole new integrated system.
okay,
So just continue to set up
Yeah,
the way that we
because,
are.
I mean, because in the capital budget that's prolonged for ARPA funds, there is money in there for upgrading the recording system in here, so we're not having to hang a microphone over the speaker, so it actually utilizes what we do with the camera changes, for broadcasting with JEA, so there is a cost associated to upgrade that, so it may be that we can put in some additional microphones to do that as well, so we're not having to piecemeal it together.
Okay.
okay. Anything else? Lori?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Hey, and I started a recording. I'll send it